We're doing something a little bit different. We're not leading with a movie review today. We got two big tidbits of news we want to talk about. At least go for the first half hour on this particular segment. Then we'll segue over to another. Segue over to some new details about MoviePass come about 12:30 in the morning. But for now, I've been prepping this topic for a while, kind of been nursing it. Messaged Joe, my great friend Joe, messaged him about it earlier last week. I think it was like right after the show last week. I messaged you.
Literally Wednesday. You
I think it was
messaged
Wednesday.
me in the afternoon.
And I said, I hate the fact that we have to wait another week to talk about this, but we're going to. Okay, I'm going to talk about Netflix's identity crisis at the moment. Okay, now I'm gonna first off kind of just go for a couple minutes talking about like the background details of this and how it pertains to God Particle. All right, so many people might not know what God Particle is. Okay. It is essentially Cloverfield 3. We had the original Cloverfield back in 2000. And then we had 10 Cloverfield Lane back in 2016, which wound up being one of my favorite movies of that particular year. Joe, did you like 10 Cloverfield Lane?
I really loved it.
I loved it. It was one of my favorite films of that year.
Quick story. I went to go see it with my family, my dad, my stepmom, and my stepbrother. They all hated it. And my stepbrother hated it because it wasn't connected to the first Cloverfield. And I tried telling him they're going to become anthology films. He was just like, well, it's stupid that they're using the same name. It's like they shouldn't do that and like market the movie like it's going to be connected. I'm just like, all right, whatever.
I didn't even think they marketed it really like it was connected. I really think that they sold this on its own. I loved it. I thought it was a tremendous film.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite performances from John Goodman.
Yeah, I was really hoping it would score some Oscar nominations, but I guess them's the breaks. Anyway, though, so going on with this, though, and how this pertains to Netflix, and we'll break down all this, okay? I'll start with this. Franchises fall either by changing public tastes or a long period of time between installments. Case in point, The Hunger Games had a lot of momentum, okay? And it completed between 2012 and about 2015, 2016. It completed its franchise pretty well and was still making money by the time Catching Fire Part 2 came out. Divergent is now going to be a TV movie / TV. There's been the franchises live and die either by changing public taste or long period of time between installments. There's a reason we're not going to get Zoolander 3. Okay, that's kind of what I'm saying here. You either strike while the iron's hot, or you talk about it for 10 years after.
There's a reason why Maze Runner didn't make that much money at the box office. Is because young adult novel films are just on their way out.
That's true.
Or have been out, basically.
And there's very few that sell.
Yeah.
More than 10 years ago, Cloverfield crossed over $100 million worldwide and relaunched found footage films. These dirt cheap, poorly shot, naturalistic movies that really changed the landscape. I mean, if you remember, after Cloverfield came out in 2007, we had a saturation up until about 2013 or 14 when it kind of calmed down of these dirt cheap $2, $3, $4 million movies that would come out, usually horror movies, and make a ton of money. So then with Cloverfield, a sequel followed in 2016, and in my opinion was one of the best films of that year. 10 Cloverfield Lane took a totally different approach to the franchise and had to adapt to a changing landscape, too. I don't think a found footage sequel to Cloverfield, most conventional sense, would have been necessarily very successful. That's just my opinion. But now we have God Particle, as it was called. I don't even know if it's going to stay that title. We could just call it Cloverfield 3. Okay. Stars David Oyelowo, Daniel Bruhl, and Elizabeth Debicki, okay, was originally slated to come out this year. And it's roughly $40 million follow-up to 10 Cloverfield Lane, and now it has been indefinitely delayed, okay? It's Paramount's movie as well. The rumor has it is that Paramount might sell the film to Netflix for a release. Here's the story. The story is not that the third Cloverfield movie is in limbo. We could talk about a lot of things. We could talk about how I see Paramount acting on the defense because Paramount has now, it's been a sagging studio for the last couple years, has not been making his money like it should be. A lot of bombs, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. They have been acquiring franchises. Like, here's right now, I didn't even know this until I read this article, the great article on Forbes by Scott Mendelson, is that Paramount's got the rights for a Friday the 13th movie.
They haven't acted on it.
They also have the rights for a new South Park movie.
And have not acted on that either.
Not acted on it. But what they've been doing is, like I said, they've been a kind of acquiring franchises. But that's not really the story.
Here's the thing, too. That Friday the 13th movie was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah, it was. It was supposed to come out last year. I mean, they've been talking about rumors for a sequel since the reboot. or the remake in 2009. But anyway, we could talk about the Paramount's defensive plot, and we could also talk about how scary it is that a film like God Particle is now seen as a big risk for studios. But this is more about Netflix than anything else. Again, if you're just joining us, Sleepless with Steve on FM 89, Cloverfield 3, God Particle, as it was once called, now in talks to be sold to Netflix. Paramount might sell the film to Netflix. But Netflix is now at an intriguing crossroads, or more bluntly put, a crisis of identity. Who do they want to be in the coming years? They've established years ago with House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, and other shows that they wanted to be about quality, original programming and content. Then they dabbled into acquiring and making movies such as the horror movie Hush, Adam Sandler's latest films, the Meyerowitz stories, the new Pee-wee film as well. They've just hit a creative misfire, though, with Bright, which is supposed to be their self-proclaimed first big blockbuster. But it is as bad as Bright was reviewed, as badly as it was reviewed, it did amazing streaming numbers.
Yeah.
Meyerowitz Stories is an exceptional film, but you probably didn't watch it. You would have rather had the hot mess in Bright. So before we go into kind of a debate on this, I'll just say, too, Hollywood have had the problem. I don't know if you would agree with this, Joe, but I assume you would on this. Hollywood's problem of middling creativity recently could hit Netflix, too. If Netflix takes Cloverfield 3, they're going to become, what I believe, are going to be a dumping ground for studio films. Studios are going to write off films in their sale to Netflix, and the appear less diverse outside of blockbusters, and Netflix will essentially be the new direct-to-DVD. Now, I don't think Netflix executives aren't considering the possibilities of image when it comes to this. It's an industry of optics, okay? And this is where the identity crisis comes in. Does Netflix want to be in control of their own original content, even the bad stuff like Bright, which is their own, or do they want to take on projects studios don't see succeeding in order to make money now and get some industry clout? That's kind of my debate. Where do you see Netflix going down the line, especially with now Cloverfield 3 in limbo?
It's interesting to think about, because the thing is that Netflix has been doing this with television shows for a while, is where they're acquiring certain television shows and turning them into Netflix originals. Arrested Development was one of them, where it was a show that got canceled and they brought it back. They're in talks of purchasing Riverdale from the CW. So there's like tons of shows that they are willing to take off of network hands and make it a Netflix original. So I don't see why they wouldn't do it with film. Now, yeah, it would give them that identity of Netflix is just the company as to if it's not working out for a big studio like Paramount. But the thing is that Netflix isn't like a Redbox or anything. Netflix is like a big company that can produce very good material. The article that we're mentioning on Forbes by what's his name again?
Scott Mendelson.
Like, he mentions how Netflix really hasn't that many great movies, and he like talks about how like Bright was a disaster and all these other things. Netflix has had plenty of great original films. Like Steve said, you have Pee-wee's Big Holiday, The Meyerowitz Story, Burning Sands, Gerald's Game, Beast of No Nation, Okja, and the Oscar-nominated film Mudbound.
Indeed.
It's like Netflix is still putting out their own good original content that I feel like they can honestly probably balance both, like they are with their TV shows, where they have their own original TV shows, as well as taking stuff and rebooting it, or taking it and just controlling it from taking it from a studio and now in control of it. So I think they can do both.
Yes, that's not a bad point. This kind of brings it to my second question too: is will people even care if this kind of thing happens? Because
probably not.
Because here's the thing, and I know you like when I say this too, but at the end of the day, when you watch something on Netflix, you probably didn't have to put pants on to see it. And what I mean by that is that you didn't have to, like, as opposed to going to the studio, or opposed to the theater. Excuse me. As opposed to going to the theater, you didn't have to get dressed, get in your car, drive, pay for it, wait in line, pay for a ticket. You didn't have to go through the extra kind of literal miles that you have to with streaming. It's very convenient for that. But as bad as these Adam Sandler movies are that have just come to Netflix, like Ridiculous 6 was horrible. Sandy Wexler was almost intolerable. I was a little bit of an apologist for the do-over too. But I will say this, though, is like as bad as these Adam Sandler films are, read the critic reviews of these movies, okay? Even if you haven't seen them, read the critic reviews. Critics like to say it's streaming, so it's not a big deal. If it sucks, you didn't have to pay to see it.
Exactly.
What did you expect is a popular quip and stuff. You know what I mean?
They signed Adam Sandler for more movies too, I believe. So it's like obviously something's working.
Well, yeah, they're doing real big numbers on this. But I just laughed when I think about it. Is like if you read the reviews of like Pixels, okay, or Jack and Jill, like you read the hostility. And again, like I said, that's because I think even in the critics' minds, even if they didn't have to pay for it because they got free screenings, they're thinking from a consumer standpoint, like people are gonna pay money to see this.
Yeah.
And this is like I said, my question is, will people even care? This is my kind of like my follow-up question. Do you think Jack and Jill, because you remember when that one came out, the Adam Sandler movie where he
I wish I didn't remember it, but yes.
Indeed, where he plays both of the title characters. Do you think Jack and Jill would have inspired the hate and ire if it was a Netflix movie?
Probably not.
Like maybe it would have been like a meme or two, but I don't think it would have been much.
They would just be like, well, okay, you can literally, if you have to go to the bathroom, you can pause it, or you could pull out your phone and no one's going to care while you're watching Jack and Jill. When you're in a theater, you have to be, of course, you got to take into custom, you got people around you. You got to be respectful of other audience members because as much as I hate to say it, somebody in that theater is probably enjoying Jack and Jill.
It's true. Yeah, and like, regardless, even if you're not enjoying it, you still paid money for the experience. That's the thing. So I think it kind of goes to the fact, and we'll get back to this God particle debate as well, but I think it goes back to the fact that, like, will people care if they're streaming or being suggested? That's the key word, I think, suggested lesser content. Keep in mind that, like this weekend, that new horror movie, I'll see it. That new Winchester comes out. Okay, I'm gonna see that. Which I
can't wait.
I'm somewhat optimistic about that, but that's neither here nor there.
I love bad horror movies.
I mean, the thing with Winchester that I laughed though is like, okay, like you see a trailer for that on TV, you're being sold that movie. Whereas like if Adam Sandler makes a new movie. I mean, there's a difference. Like there's a difference in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a difference. Like there's a difference in perception too. So I look at that and I think, would people even care if they're being suggested what they perceive as lesser content? So if Netflix really does kind of go this way and start to like buy off, or like if studios come and say, hey, we got this movie, we don't have too much faith in it, would you take X amount of money for it or whatnot? Would you want to purchase it and to stream it and whatnot? I wonder. I just wonder though, because like even my buddy mentioned this too. I just wonder because he even said, he's like, Netflix is so weird. He said on one hand you got some really good stuff on there, but you also have some really terrible movies. That's what he said, like original content from them. So he said, I wonder, I'm really curious as to what the optics of the approach are going to be in the next couple months. What do you think?
It's hard to say. I don't know, because, I just think back once again. I mean, like, while Bright isn't the best movie, it's still got a lot of views from people.
Yeah.
That's the thing at the end of the day.
That's what it boils down to.
It's still attracted. Like, you put Cloverfield on this, and it's going to attract people's attention because it has the name Cloverfield attached to it. Or, it has certain actors people are attracted to, like David, what's his last name?
Oyelowo?
Yeah, I can never pronounce
David
it.
Oyelowo.
And, like, people might be like, oh, I know that guy, and, like, click on it for that. I'm telling you right now, most people tuned in to watch Bright because it was Will Smith. Yeah. On Netflix. Like, that's, and, you never would have thought, like, you would see Will Smith pop up on a Netflix movie.